Solo leveling is packed with insanely strong characters, but the Monarchs are by far the strongest ones. These guys are an ancient race of monsters who literally wants to wipe out all of humanity. So yeah, they are super scary. So that's why we'll go over and explain each of the Monarchs and rank them by strength from weakest to strongest. Alright, first up, we've got Querehsha, the Monarch of Plagues and the Queen of Insects. And if you've got a fear of bugs, she's basically your worst nightmare come to life. Because being the Queen of Insects, she has an entire army of horrifying insects. But it gets even worse, because Querehsha also has the ability Necromancy. Yep, just like Jinwoo. However, Querehsha instead reanimates the dead using parasites, creating a full-blown army of corpse puppets. Like, just look at this. It's terrifying. Other than Necromancy, she also has Mana Manipulation, letting her summon giant glowing hands to grab and crush her enemies, and Venom Inducement, meaning she can secrete deadly toxins from her own body. So basically, just being near her was dangerous. Now, she's not only got scary powers, but she looks terrifying as well. Pale skin, long black hair, and glowing red eyes. But if this form isn't scary enough, when she uses her spiritual body manifestation, Querehsha transforms into this terrifying insect-like monster, covered in swarming bugs and countless limbs sticking out of her back. It wasn't just for show either. She weaponizes all these insects to straight up overpower her enemies, and her personality absolutely matches her terrifying looks, as Querehsha is a bloodthirsty individual who lived to kill and loved every second of it. But she also was a real softie for all insects. She treated them like her children, and she even showed affection towards Beru when she met him later on. But yeah, we all know Beru wants to stay by his lord's side, so sorry Querehsha, but Beru's staying with Jinwoo. Next up, let's talk about Baran, the Monarch of White Flames and the King of Demons. But first, let's clear something up. The Baran that Jinwoo fights in the Demon Castle? Well, that's not the real Baran. That version was just a replica that was way weaker created by the system. So just imagine how insanely strong his actual power must have been. Now first, visually, replica Baran looked almost the same as the real one. He was a huge jacked demon with gray skin instead of purple like the replica, glowing white flame-like hair, glowing white eyes instead of red like the replica, and 4 big horns on his head. He also wore some seriously intimidating armor. Personality-wise, Baran was cruel and aggressive, but he never backed down. He wasn't the type to run, and he definitely wasn't afraid of dying. He always stood his ground till the end, no matter how bad it looked. Now, finally, let's talk about Baran's insane strength. As the King of Demons, Baran could use Hell's Army, which let him summon his own demonic army through portals, basically his own version of Jinwoo's Shadow Army, but straight from Hell. Then there's Lightning Breath. Baran could shoot torrents of lightning out of his mouth, which was immensely powerful. And on top of all that, he also had Spiritual Body Manifestation, which we, however, sadly never got to see in action, but I'm sure it would have been terrifying. So, even though we only saw a weakened version of Baran in the series, the real Monarch of White Flames was a straight-up monster. Moving on, we've got Tarnak, the Monarch of the Iron Body and the King of Monstrous Humanoids. At first glance, Tarnak actually looks very human-like, with slick blonde hair and human-like features, although he's got these glowing green eyes. But don't let that fool you. He absolutely hates humans. Like, he's straight up disgusted by the idea that someone like Jinwoo, a mere human, could become the new Shadow Monarch. Tarnak was also an egotistical and overconfident individual who had great pride in being a monarch. Still, he was also a very smart and cunning individual. And just like Querehsha, Tarnak had the ability to use Spiritual Body Manifestation. And let me tell you, he looks straight up monstrous. So again, at first glance, Tarnak looks like your standard pretty handsome villain, but then his body starts to crack and this eerie green light begins to shine through. Ultimately, he fully transforms into a massive, gigantic golem with glowing lime green hair and dark gray armor. And Tarnak's golem form is all about raw, destructive power, smashing through anything or anyone in his path. So yeah, Tarnak's a beast. Still, Tarnak wasn't as strong as this next guy, Rakan, the Monarch of Fangs and the King of Beasts. He's this massive, terrifying beast man with glowing yellow eyes, razor-sharp teeth, and a body built like a tank. And we actually get a glimpse of him at the end of Season 2, and you know he's trouble from the second he shows up. Just like Tarnak, Rakan hates humans. Like, this poor guy accidentally bumped into him and Rakan literally just ate him on the spot. Now, personality-wise, he's arrogant, aggressive, and has an intense bloodthirstiness. And even in his base form, Rakan is crazy, fast, and strong. But when he activates his spiritual body manifestation, he transforms into a giant white wolf. and it's easily one of the most intimidating forms in the entire series. Huge claws, sharp fangs, glowing red eyes, so basically a howling nightmare. What makes Rakan even more dangerous is that, like Baek Yoonho, he can partially transform his body. For example, we see him later on only transforming his arms, legs, torso, and hair to gain a huge boost in power, while still keeping his humanoid form. So he's basically the wolf version of Yoonho, but way stronger and scarier. Talking about Rakan, who we saw in the last episode of Season 2, next up we've got the other monarch who showed up, Sillad, the monarch of Frost and the king of the Snowfolk. Now, Sillad is insanely strong. Like, we saw him put A-rank hunters to sleep by just snapping his fingers. But that's of course nothing compared to his true strength. Sillad is the absolute master of ice magic. He can create massive waves of ice, summon blizzards, shape ice into deadly weapons, and even form giant ice monsters to fight for him. He's also got ice breath attacks that can instantly freeze anything in front of him. Now, as we can all see, this guy looks like just an old man with long white hair. But don't let that grandpa look fool you. As I said, Sillad is OP. And when he activates his spiritual body manifestation, it's like he hits the ultimate glow-up button. Gone is the old man. Instead, he gets younger looking, his hair gets longer and glows like icy flames, and his ears become more elf-like. Oh, and most of his clothes disappear too, leaving just black pants and boots. Anyway, if his looks don't freeze you in fear, his overwhelming power will. Alright, even though Sillad is strong, this next guy is even stronger. Legia, the monarch of the beginning and the king of giants. Now, Legia isn't like the other monarchs who pull up ready to wreck everything in sight. Instead, he's actually kind of a mystery at first, as when we meet him, he's literally just chained up inside a dungeon boss room. So, who is this guy? Well, appearance-wise, Legia is exactly what you'd expect from the king of giants, a massive, buff giant with bluish-gray skin, long, messy black hair, a scruffy beard, and glowing red eyes. But why is he in chains? Well, at some point, Legia was captured by the rulers who locked him up with mana-absorbing chains. So is he weak? Absolutely not. You see, the monarch's strength usually reflects the species they command, and considering normal giants are strong enough to overpower S-rank hunters, that alone tells you Legia is insanely powerful. Want proof? Well, the so-called supergiant who started to wreak havoc in Japan, yeah, that beast was so strong it gave national-level vibes, but the only reason it was that strong was because it was juiced up by Legia's mana. So basically, just his mana alone was turning giants into national-level monsters. So, yeah, this guy is absolutely no joke. Now, before we reach the top 3, we've got Yogumunt, the monarch of transfiguration and the king of demonic specters. Like Sillad, he looks like an old man with gray hair, light red eyes that turn purple when he's angry, and he's always rocking this dark bone mask over his mouth with a black and purple hooded cloak. Whenever we see him, he's constantly levitating, as he has the ability to freely levitate himself off the ground. And just like the other monarchs, Yogumunt saw humanity as an inferior species, like he literally called Jinwoo's dad a weakling, and didn't think it was worth the time to fight him, even though Il-Hwan later took on 2 monarchs at once. So yeah, Yogumunt was scary strong. What made Yogumunt even more dangerous was how smart and tactical he was. His main power was Gate Creation, which summons multiple purple portals, which he used to transport himself and his army around the battlefield, basically playing 4D chess. But how do we know he was the 4th strongest? Well, Antares, another monarch we'll soon get into, trusted him with his army, and that alone gotta put him as one of the strongest, and you'll soon understand why. Alright, finally getting into the top 3, we've got the legend himself, Ashborn, the OG monarch of shadows and the king of the dead. As you can see, Ashborn looks terrifying. He's this massive shadow warrior decked out in dark black armor, with flaming purple hair, glowing purple eyes, 2 curved black horns, razor-sharp claws, a long smoky black cloak, and of course, a pure black sword. Like, just his appearance alone tells you how strong he is. But here's the twist. Ashborn was literally a saint compared to the other monarchs. He had a deep respect for humanity, wanted peace, and was tired of the endless war between the monarchs and the rulers. So instead of fighting forever, he chose to end the cycle of violence by passing on his powers and legacy to a human in hopes of putting an end to the bloodshed once and for all. And that human was, of course, Jinwoo. But more on that later. Now let's talk about power, because Ashborn was a monster in battle. Ashborn commanded an army of 100,000 shadow soldiers, and we're talking legends like Baran and Igris, and his own physical strength is immeasurable. Like, he could wipe out entire armies without breaking a sweat, overpower 2 monarchs at once, And oh yeah, he popped Baran's skull with one hand. Yeah, that's how Baran died. On top of that, he had all the same powers Jinwoo would later use: shadow extraction, shadow exchange, and immortality through the Black Heart. So Ashborn was one of the strongest of his kind, rivaled only by Antares, who we'll talk about next. Antares is the Monarch of Destruction and the King of Dragons, and this dude makes every other Monarch, except for Ashborn of course, look like bums compared to his strength. As the King of Dragons, Antares commands an army of 10 million dragons. Yeah, 10 million! And although he was insanely strong in his basic form, showing off his red hair, red beard, glowing red eyes, and dark red claws, when he goes into his ultimate form with his spiritual body manifestation, he's on a completely different level, as he transforms into an enormous red dragon, and his power level skyrockets into something unmeasurable. He becomes faster, tougher, and just unstoppable. Oh, and don't forget his strongest and most dangerous ability, called the Breath of Destruction, which is easily one of the most terrifying moves in the entire series, because if he hits you with this, you're not just taking massive damage, you literally cannot heal from it. Like if Antares hits one of Jinwoo's shadows, they won't be able to regenerate, or if he burns your hand, you will have a permanent scar. So basically, once it hits, you're done. And just like Rakan, Antares can also transform into a hybrid form, his human dragon form, where he gets snake-like eyes, reptilian armor, and a menacing white helmet with 4 dragon horns. It's intimidating, sure, but his full-on dragon form, way scarier. Now let's talk about his personality. Antares knows he's the strongest, and he carries himself like it. He's calm, cocky, and totally unfazed by most situations. Like the other monarchs, he also sees humans as nothing more than ants, and wouldn't blink twice at wiping them out completely. However, he actually has a sense of honor, and if someone manages to impress him in battle, like Jinwoo later does, he totally respects him. Talking about Jinwoo, he's of course the last monarch we need to talk about, as he's the new Shadow Monarch and the strongest of them all. We all know Jinwoo was literally known as the weakest hunter of mankind, but then came the Double Dungeon where everything changed as he got the System. And this was actually thanks to Ashborn. See, Ashborn, the previous Shadow Monarch, was looking for a successor, and even though Jinwoo was pathetically weak and constantly within death's reach, he somehow always managed to escape with his life. And when Ashborn saw how he never gave up and how he risked his life again and again to protect his family, he came to believe that Jinwoo was worthy of inheriting his power. So, Ashborn transferred his powers to Jinwoo, and that's when he truly became the Shadow Monarch. Now, as the Shadow Monarch, Jinwoo's greatest strength and ability is of course necromancy, as he can extract the shadows of the dead and turn them into loyal soldiers. And now, we're talking about an army of 10 million shadow soldiers. Yeah, I'm serious. In this army, he's also got legends like Beru, Igris, Iron, Tusk, and Bellion. But it gets even crazier, as Jinwoo eventually unlocks his ultimate form, Astralization, where his entire body gets wrapped in black armor glowing with this haunting purple energy. And in this form, he's basically unstoppable. His speed, strength, and abilities were all taken to god-tier levels, and nothing could stand against him. So ultimately, he literally becomes one of the strongest characters in the history of anime. Yeah, you can quote me on that. Do you agree with my ranking of the monarchs, and who is your favorite monarch? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.